Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm really pleased to be joined by a very special guest. I've got the wonderful James Griffiths on my channel. So how are you doing, James?
Hi Ross, yes, very well. Glad to be here now. We finally managed to crack the Zoom code.
Absolutely, yeah. We're having a few technical issues, but we've got there. So hopefully this video will run smoothly. Yeah. So this video is going to be a bit of like a follow-up video to one that James made quite a few years back. I looked it up, like it was 2017. Like you did like a top 10 column molding songs like video. So of course column molding, the kind of secondary songwriter, like in like XTC, like in like many ways. It was a really fantastic video, and we're today going to be doing a follow-up looking at our 10 favorite songs by Andy Partridge, who was the slightly more dominant songwriter, like in like XTC. It was kind of like a 70-30 kind of split, like sort of thing. But yeah, firstly, James, like, do you want to just sort of like refresh us a bit on like what your kind of first like introductions and like interactions were like with like XTC?
Okay, yeah, it was a bit strange that I missed them completely first time around, because by about 1978, 79, I was watching Top of the Pops every week, and yet somehow I completely and utterly missed their existence. I got no memory of any of those songs, really. The first time I ever heard XTC, this is really strange, I was in a rave club in Bradford, and I was I was in the chill out room of this sort of all-night rave club where they used to play a variety of different things, and the DJ played Making Plans for Nigel. It was about 3 a.m. It came on the sound system, and I was like, what the hell is this? This is fantastic. So this is like sort of mid-90s, really. So God knows why he played it. Anyway, so then I bought Skylarking in the 90s, totally fell in love with it, and it's still my favorite XTC album. And then shortly after that, I started to collect the albums. So I did, it was very much a postscript thing for me, XTC. I literally got no idea how I missed them first time round.
But yeah, what we're going to do is we'll run through our 10 favourites, and then we also thought to do a couple of our least favourites as well, like which we'll chuck in like at like the end, like just for like a bit of fun. So do you want to kick us off with your number 10 choice?
Yeah, certainly. So these don't have to come in the order that they come in, really. Although I have put my favourite at number 1. So for number 10, I'm going to go with a song from, I think it's from this album anyway, I really hope it is, from Black Sea. I nearly chose the opening track, which is Respectable Street, because it's such a classic. But I thought I'd go for a deep cut, and I'm going to choose some deep cuts essentially. So this video hopefully will be of some use to people who have maybe heard, some of the more well-known stuff. So I'll go with Rocket from a Bottle on side 1. Which is just great fun. It always puts a smile on my face. It's very inventive, it's very Andy, and it's just very infectious. It's got really good tribal drums in it, and yeah, I just like it. I thought it'd be an interesting one to have, slightly off the beaten track.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, one of my favourites, like as well. And like you, I mean, my list is a lot of deep cuts. Like I think I've only got one song what was released like as a single anywhere, like on like my list. So I think we are very much going like quite deep into like his like into the XTC like back catalogue. And for like my number 10, that's definitely the case. So I'm choosing a track from Wasp Star, and I'm going with the I'm going with the Wheel and the Maypole, the final track like on the album. I think it's just a brilliant closing statement for like the band. I'm not sure if like when they made this album they knew it would be the final record. I'm still not 100% sure, because like they formally disbanded I think 2006, about 6 years after this came out. But when you listen to this, you kind of can't help thinking this seems like a kind of closing statement, like akin to something like the Abbey Road medley by the Beatles, just a song kind of concerning the kind of like the cycle of life. And it's a multi-part like adventure, like this song basically. You've got some great harmonies on it, fantastic lyrics, and yeah, it's always a song which I really love. So yeah, The Wheel and the Maypole by number 10.
Yes, I remember you giving that. I think you gave that 10 out of 10 in your review of the album, didn't you?
Yeah.
That album has been a real rediscovery for me, really, just off the back of making this video. I don't think I'd given it enough attention over the years, and I've just so enjoyed it. I don't think I have a track from it, but there are so many good songs on that record. Playground is a fantastic one. The opening track is just fantastic. But yeah, great choice. Okay, so for my number 9, I'm going to go with a track from English settlement. And again, I thought I'd go for a deep cut rather than the obvious choice. So I'd go for a song which is it's really haunting. It's a song which, after I've listened to it, I want to listen to it again straight away. And it's Jason and the Argonauts. Which is on side one, and I don't know what it is about this song. It's very atmospheric. It's got this kind of haunting is the best word I can describe, really. I think Andy's father had been in the Merchant Navy. He was born in Malta, wasn't he, Andy Partridge? He was born in Malta, and his father had been in the Navy, and he wanted to write a song that was evocative of kind of seafaring adventures and myths and legends, and the song certainly has that quality to it. I particularly love the middle part. There's a really big kind of booming acoustic-y part in the middle which is so memorable. And the one criticism I have of the song is that, like a lot of songs on this record, and Andy in general does tend to flog the horse a little bit, and I think it's probably about 6 minutes long and it could do with a bit of a chop. But I still think it's a fantastic song. So, Jason and the Argonauts.
My number 9 now is from Skylarking, and it is Earn Enough for Us. This was one of the first XTC songs which I heard. Basically, it was probably the second one I heard, to be honest. We'll get to the first one I heard in a bit. But yeah, I was just instantly captivated by it. So it's quite Beatlesy, those sort of 60s kind of feel to it, kind of Revolver era Beatles, on it, with a great lyric, very domestic kind of lyric about a guy sort of worrying about not making enough money to last the week, basically, and that. And yeah, it's just a song which I really enjoy. So yeah, Good Enough for Us would be my number 9.
Yeah, that's just reminded me. I meant to say something at the start of the video and I forgot. Skylarking is my favourite XTC album, and when you first pitched me the idea of doing a top 10 Andy Partridge, I first thought, well, I'll just do all the songs that Andy wrote for Skylarking, because I love every single Andy song on that record. So just to be perverse, I've decided to ration myself to one song from that record.
Okay.
Because oddly enough, I think a lot of the songs on that record by Andy, they're brilliant, but they sort of have to be heard together as a piece, really. I think it was the stroke of genius Todd Rundgren had. He sort of merged them all together, didn't he? So there are so many songs that sort of segue and merge into each other. I do think that you kind of have to hear it as a piece. Anyway, that's why I decided not to choose that song, because that's long been a favourite of mine, but I decided not to feature it. Right, so number 8 for me then, we're going to go to an album which I think is slightly underrated and overlooked in the catalogue. I only have it on CD, I'm afraid. So this is from Nonsuch, and it's the song Dear Madam Barnum. Which apparently was written for the Australian film The Crossing. I've never seen that. Don't really know how that came to be. And Andy, apparently, he called it a cross between Manfred Mann, the Hollies, and English folk rock. I'm not sure where he was thinking with that. But
I can definitely hear the Hollies in it. Yeah, I can definitely hear the Hollies. Yeah,
it's a very catchy pop song. It's very uplifting, and it does have quite a dark lyric, doesn't it? I can't think what it's about now. I can't remember what the sentiment of the song is. What he's thinking about, is it the one where he sings about I resign as clown?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely got a bit of a kind of dark, angsty feel to it, which is completely contradicted by the melody, which is very uplifting. A very strong song. It's one that I hadn't really thought of until I went back to this album in preparation for the video, and it just really stuck out. So I thought, right, I'll have it. So there we go, Madam Barnum, dear Madam Barnum, at number 8.
Excellent. Yeah, that was one of my bubbling unders, which I'm not sure if we'll get to, but yeah, that was one which has almost made the cut for me. But now at number 8, probably quite a divisive choice, this one here, but I'm going to go for a track from the Big Express. It's a Train Running Low on Soul Cold, the closing track. They always had a lot of great closing tracks, XTC, and this is probably one of my favourites. I mean, production-wise, it is full on. There's a lot of sort of clashes and crashes, and just sort of it's a lot this track, and then you've got this kind of frantic pace in that. But it just captivates me this song here again. great lyrics about, again, quite angsty lyrics about the kind of anxiety of kind of aging and kind of hurtling towards death. He's kind of using these sort of like these railway like metaphors, like my sprinter speed reduced to a crawl, my rails go straight into a wall. It's a wall on which they crash the older engines and that. It's just a great song, and like kind of melodically, like that chorus, so good. I mean, like, but like if like you're not a fan of like the actual album version, like there's a great acoustic version they do. They did a TV special I think around this time, like where it's just Andy and Dave Gregory playing this, and that sounds fantastic as well. But even so, yeah, like it's still a great version like on the album.
I've not heard that version. I'll have to check that out. I must confess.
Called Play at Home, the special, yeah.
Okay. I must confess, I did have this song written down in my list of annoying songs, but it came with a proviso, and that is I love the the chorus or the main sort of refrain.
I think I'm going south for the winter bit, yeah.
Love that bit, and to me it does slightly nail what I find annoying about Andy Partridge's songs sometimes, where you get this really amazing hook or something that's really brilliant, and then you just think, if only he just sort of got rid of all the banging, clattering, annoying stuff, it would have made a fantastic song. But I take your point. I mean, XTC's more experimental side has to be reckoned with, really. You can't really brush that stuff under the carpet, and that song is not the only example where they did something really kind of dark and strange and unsettling, so I admire you for choosing that one. Right, okay. Most of my stuff so far has been quite middle of the road, I think. It does start to get more experimental as we move further up the list. But number 7 is another one of these ones which is very sort of sunny and upbeat. And it comes from this album, Oranges and Lemons, which I think is one of their more accessible records, really. And it's the song I'm Merely a Man. Which is just one of those ones that totally just lodges itself in your brain. Apparently Dave Gregory really hated this song at first and didn't want to work on it, but then he decided after they'd worked on it and turned it into this thing that he loved it. So it's an example of one of those situations in XTC where Andy had this idea, it wasn't going down well with people, and they just managed to pull a rabbit out of a hole, really. So yeah, it was rejected originally. Their manager wanted them to do a song that sounded a bit like ZZ Top, apparently. But it didn't turn out anything like that. What I love about it is the trumpet solo. It's got a bit of a Magical Mystery Tour feel to it, with all that popping brass on it. This is their most kind of, 60s record, really, if you don't count the Duke stuff. And that track has definitely got a bit of a Beatles 67 kind of sound to it, so love it.
So, my number 7 choice now is for Black Sea, and it is the opening track. You mentioned it, or Lagging Passing there, Respectable Street. Obviously, this one's very much influenced like by like Ray Davies and the Kinks. This one here, like Andy Partridge taking on the role of this Davies style like observer who's kind of sneering at like his neighbours in this kind of like suburban kind of soap opera kind of song. Again, some great kind of like lines in it, like wordplay, like Avon Lady fills the creases when she manages to squeeze in past the caravans that never moved from their front gardens, and you've got that teamed with this killer riff and like some thundering drums like from Terry on it as well. All round, brilliant track.
Yeah, I thought you might choose that, which is why I went for the other one. But it's very Blur-like, isn't it? I mean, as soon as you hear those opening chopping guitar chords, you just think, yeah, Blur straight away.
Okay, so I think it's your number 6 now, James.
Righto. Well, I struggled with this one as to where to put it, because every time I listen to it, I think it's one of the greatest songs ever. So it could have come at number 1, but I thought it's a bit of an oddball choice. Having said that, my number 1 choice is an oddball choice, but I won't put it at number 1. From Nonsuch, I'm going to go with the song Rook. Which, I don't know what it is about Rook. It's always stood out to me. I remember reading about it, Andy Partridge saying that he'd had writer's block for about 3 months, and then he was messing around on the piano in his shed, and he came up with these piano chords, and they are incredible piano chords. God knows how he came across them. They're just really amazing. He started playing these chords, and this song just kind of came to him, and he was so relieved that he'd written a song that he broke down in his shed and cried, and he said he thought he was going to die, because it was such a powerful experience. Now the song is this incredible evocation of a kind of bleak winter's day, I suppose, with a rook perched on a tree. It sort of reminds me of Ted Hughes a little bit. It's got that kind of just that wild, open countryside kind of sound to it. And I love the middle bit, which has this really kind of tremulous piano in it. It's a song, I think, which totally demonstrates Andy's individuality. I think by this time, he was basically almost, it sounds pretentious, but he was almost moving into writing classical music in a way, kind of modern classical music. And it was no longer just kind of guitar band stuff. He was evolving massively, I think, at this point. And the song has got a wonderful kind of haunting string arrangement. It's very barren sounding, it's very cold sounding, wintry, and it's only short, about maybe 2.5 minutes, but I just think it's an absolute masterpiece. And if I was going to play any song to anybody to try and demonstrate that Andy Partridge is a songwriting genius, he's not just some guy from a band, that's the song I would play for sure.
So my next one is from an album where he was advancing musically and sort of trying out new things. So it's from Apple Venus Volume 1, but this maybe doesn't quite fit into that. It's I'd Like That. So like a really very the second track on here. It's a very charming kind of like so like acoustic number, very McCartney-esque. This one in terms of like its like catchiness, I think, but also it's just so like there's so many twists and turns in it, like melodically, and then just just like a really very playful song, and like both in terms of like its like music, like and like its production, but also like the lyrics of it's kind of like the historical references, like I'll be your Albert if like if you'd be Victoria, like all that kind of stuff. Like so, no, it's a song which I really like. It always puts a big smile like on my face. So yeah, I'd like that.
I think the first 4 songs on the album are just totally faultless, and I mean, the rest of it's not too shabby. Definitely a masterpiece, I think. Again, it lacks Dave Gregory, I suppose. It was their orchestral conceit, but definitely a work of genius. And again, it's one of those ones that kind of sees Andy maybe moving more into classical music territory, certainly flexing his muscles as a composer. Okay, then. So I'm going to go then to a song which nearly didn't make the list, then it made the list, then it got taken out, and then it went back in, and then it got taken out, and then it went back in. The reason I nearly threw it out is I kind of think it's a production rather than a song. It is a song, it's a great song really, but the production is so mind-bendingly incredible that sometimes I just think this is kind of a production number rather than a great song. But it's the opening song on Oranges and Lemons, and it's Garden of Earthly Delights. Which has a kind of Turkish feel to it. It's kind of Middle Eastern. It's just, I mean, the musicianship on it is indescribable, really. Colin's bass playing, there's loads of samples on it. It's just incredible. It's like a mosaic, or I don't know, like a rug which somebody has woven. It was just incredible textures and patterns on it. God knows how they came up with it in the studio. The producer, Paul Fox, he was only a young guy. He'd not done that much. He'd worked with Boy George, I think, and a couple of other things. But I think him and the band found themselves on the same wavelength, unlike with the Todd Rundgren thing on the previous record, Skylarking, where there'd been a lot of tension. On this record, I think they worked really well with Paul Fox, and you can kind of hear it on the record. There's a huge amount of enjoyment which just kind of leaps out, and that song really launches the album into the stratosphere. It's one of those songs where you just think, how on earth are they going to follow that? Because it's like a sort of kaleidoscope, head-spinning, incredible piece of work, really. But I do think, to qualify, maybe it's a group composition in the sense that the musicianship is so amazing on it. A different band, maybe the song wouldn't have come through as a great song.
So for my number 5, go for a song from an album which, again, like we were talking, and this isn't one of your favourite albums, and I don't think you've got any tracks from it, or rather, I think you're more a fan of like the Collins song. So it's from Drums and Wires, and I'm going for Roads Girdle the Globe. So this is my favourite.
I had a feeling that you were going to choose this one. I don't know why.
So, yeah. No, this is my favourite probably my favourite song, like on Drums and Wires. I would say it's a very industrial sounding song, which very much fits the lyrics of this, about kind of sort of like roads, like sort of like taking over like the world and that, and sort of like with kind of cars. That it reminds me, like, whenever like I listen to this song, I think of like Glasgow, like with like the M8 kind of going through, just sort of whole sort of concrete structures everywhere, that and like that kind of like that sort of like landscapes and like that, like with like this song here. But for me, why I also want to choose this song is because for me, it's just such a huge step up from the first two XTC albums, which I'm personally not a massive fan of either one. I know a lot of people love White Music. Second one often comes in for a bit of like criticism, but neither of those are particularly like my favorites. But this song is probably half of it is probably down to Dave Gregory. He, I think, carries this song a lot. Like his dual guitar work, like with Partridge, reminds me a lot of like Television, like sort of like this kind of like very kind of like post-punk sound to it. So like Roads Girdle the Globe, like another favourite.
Yeah, it didn't make any of my lists, but I must admit I did think of it. When I first got into that album, it seemed clear to me that was the Andy song on that record. I mean, to me, the album is completely dominated by Making Plans for Nigel, which I think is one of the greatest pop songs of all time. And obviously, that's a Colin Moulding song, and it launches the album. And I like a couple of his other songs on that record, but that is definitely an Andy song which jumps out at you as being something very different. I think it's quite influenced by Captain Beefheart, probably. It's got those kind of detuned guitars, but the Television parallel is quite interesting as well, that kind of post-punk sound, very clashing and kind of angry sounding, really, isn't it? Good stuff. Right, okay then. Now the next song is one which I think you do like this one, because I'm fairly certain you gave it 10 out of 10. In your review of the album, but we'll have to see whether it makes your list. It nearly came off my list a couple of times, but I thought I would go for it. So it's from the Big Express,
okay,
and it is the song "Seagulls Screaming, Kiss Her, Kiss Her."
Seagulls screaming, kiss her, kiss her.
Which is a very difficult song to describe. Probably of all the songs I've chosen, it's the one which is most difficult to describe. Although I would say it's got a kind of, what I think of as being a kind of ice cream van keyboard in it. I mean, the song is basically an evocation of, if you imagine a kind of wind-blasted beach in the middle of nowhere, and there's a guy on the beach, the howling wind, and he's sort of wrestling with himself over this thing about, he needs to tell this girl that he loves her, essentially, because if he doesn't tell her, he's going to lose her forever. And I think it did reflect some stuff that was going on in Andy's personal life at the time. His marriage was coming to an end. He had a new prospective relationship. So it's definitely a very truthful song. But the song takes ages to get to the chorus. Call it a chorus. I don't know. It's more like a refrain. It's this sort of high keening thing. It sounds a bit like seagulls in the wind, And again, it's one of those songs, Andy Partridge starting to really become a composer, really. This album was produced by, what was the guy's name? He was a classical arranger.
David Lord.
David Lord, yeah, he'd famously turned down the Beatles. They asked him to do some orchestrations for Revolver, I think, and he turned them down because he didn't rate them. I thought it's such a great story. He turned down the Beatles, but then he accepted a job, whatever, like 10 years, 15 years later to do XTC. And I think this album is very harsh and metallic. It's got that Linn drum on it and lots of production and samples, which is slightly unfortunate. But at the same time, you have this guy, this orchestrator, this classical guy, and I think his fingerprints are all over that song, just the textures and the sounds. It's just incredible. It's really amazing. So not quite sure why it nearly edged off the list again, because it does blow my mind every time I hear it. But so yeah, Seagulls Screaming, Kiss Her, Kiss Her.
Great choice. Well, I won't say much more about that because it is to come at some point on my list, but we'll see where it gets to.
It's about time we crossed over at least once. We've not crossed over once yet, have we?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, but that's just a testament to how many brilliant songs he has. But anyway, I'll get on with my number 4, which is from the album Mama here. This is a fairly new reissue of it with what was supposed to be like the original cover of it.
Nice, I've got the
original there for comparison. And for the track I go for is the opener, Beating of Hearts. which is it's a kind of Eastern inspired song, much darker feel to it than I think almost anything they kind of done like up to like that point. Almost kind of like you've got like these kind of tribal kind of like sort of qualities like on it as well. Like, but lyrically, it's quite a on like the one level, like quite like an earnest love song, you know, describing like the universal power like of love as like a force that awakes you every morning from your bed and that. But then it's also got a slightly like political side to it as well, sort of like where you sort of say like louder than tanks on the highway, louder than bombers, if like sort of saying like it's like more powerful than like war, so that sort of stuff like that. So but for me, it's always a song which I really like enjoy, and like there's so much going on it, like with like whether it be like sort of like the drumming or like sort of like Dave Gregory's like guitar part, and yeah, it's just a really well put together song, and like unique song as well. Like I certainly don't know any other song by like any other band what sounds like that. So yeah, that's my number 4.
Yeah, well, I nearly had Love on a Farm Boy's Wages from that album, and I don't think I've chosen anything from this album, which is strange because it's always been a favourite of mine. I kind of view it really as a kind of first attempt at Skylarking in a way, even though there was the Big Express came in between, didn't it? But it represented them moving quickly away from that kind of loud, bombastic post-rock sound. I think losing Terry Chambers, even though it was sad that he went, but I think after he went, they were able to explore, you know, different avenues, and it's much more acoustic, much more folky, and that song is certainly very original. So yeah, it's a shame I didn't choose anything from the record. I should have done really, but I mean, you know, you can't squeeze everything in, can you? That's the problem.
Absolutely, aye. And like you're saying, like with that album, it is the precursor to Skylarking basically. But I love how they did do like kind of like the Big Express. It kind of is so different as well, like, you know, like it's even though like a lot of people do kind of bundle those two together, Mama and Big Express, kind of like a kind of like Rubber Soul Revolver kind of relationship, but it's not really the case though. I mean, because they are just so different, I like the Big Express how they are returning to that slightly angular and sort of like sound, but then also like at the same time then doing like sort of like very pastoral like sort of music like as well.
Right, so my next one, this is number 3, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I did struggle with this a little bit. I decided I needed to have a song from this record. This was the second XTC album I ever heard after Skylarking. Skylarking I loved immediately. This album was a disappointment when I first heard it because I wanted it to be just like Skylarking, and it's not really. It's a different thing. So I nearly went for River of Orchids, I didn't, and nearly went for I'd Like That, didn't, that's the one you picked. So I did then cascade back to the third track and I went for Easter Theatre. Now this song is one of these ones which I think probably took a long time. Dave Gregory tells a story. He went down into Andy Partridge's garden, went down to, you know, into his shed at the bottom of the garden, and he was messing around with it. It was like sort of Kurt Cobain style riff, and he was really obsessed with it. Dave could see that he was like totally obsessed with this thing, and Dave sort of stood and watched him for about half an hour and just came away just thinking, God, Andy's really lost it. He's just messing around with this sort of dirgy riff. What the hell is he playing, that kind of thing? Went back about 2 weeks later and Andy had just morphed it into this incredible song called Easter Theatre, which had borne no resemblance at all to what Dave had been listening to that day. It's just an incredibly uplifting song. The chorus is just so beautiful. It's so kind of all-enveloping. Not quite sure what the song's about. I've never really sort of listened to the words too carefully, but it certainly seems to be a very potent song. It's got a very, you know, it's got a big, deep sort of emotional reach to it. And yeah, I mean, I could easily have gone for River of Orchids as well, because that song is totally mind-blowing too. But I thought you might go for that one, but maybe not, maybe not.
Right, now I'm going back for my number 3, back to Skylarking here, and it's going for That's Really Super Supergirl.
That's really Supergirl.
Which is one of the absolute highlights for me. I think this had great potential to be a single. You know, like I think on Skylarking they chose slightly duff singles, to be honest. I think like what just didn't really, I guess I was going to say like didn't really fit in like with like the times. This one didn't really either, but I think certainly had a bit more potential, considering it is very catchy. You've got this kind of like that is very sort of playful metaphor with like the kind of like this sort of like this girl like with kind of like superpowers, and also I think features probably Dave Gregory's best guitar solo on this. I think that guitar solo, it's just perfect. It's like he doesn't overplay it, but there's so much going on in it as well. It just fits the song, I think, and like his concise is just everything I want from like a guitar solo. Like that's really Supergirl would come in at number 3 for me.
I love that song. I mean, I love all of Andy's songs on that record. You know, Supergirl and Ballet for a Rainy Day, Season Cycle. I mean, they're all fantastic. I could have chosen all my picks could have come from that record. So I just need to, re-stress that, because I'm not choosing many from Skylarking apart from one. And you'll see in a moment where that is. And I think you'll be surprised at what it is and how high I've got it on the list. But we'll see anyway. Now, this one, I've got a strong suspicion, Ross, that you've got this next one. You might not, but you might. From the Big Express at number 2, I'm going to go with This World Over. Now, just before I start on this one, there's one thing I don't like about it, and I think it's something which Andy has acknowledged. I think that the Lynn drum on this one is really, really too loud. It's too merciless. It's just got this kind of sledgehammer kind of sound all the way through. Every time I listen to it, I just think, if only they hadn't done that. If only they'd used a proper drummer, it would have improved it. But having said that, I still think the song is an incredibly powerful thing. I mean, every time I listen to it, apparently it made Andy Partridge, it made Andy cry when he was composing it, because he'd been thinking about his child. I think he just had a child at that point, and he was imagining this song where a parent, or was it a child asking a parent, what was London like?
Yeah, that line.
There's been this nuclear war, and the child is basically asking the parent, and the parent is trying to explain to the child, you can't go out into the garden anymore, and it's so dark. But it's just got this incredible fretless bass playing from Colin Moulding, and the bit where it says, what was London like, this keyboard refrain comes in. It's one of the most heart-stopping moments in all 80s rock music, really. And I love the fade out. Just keeps repeating, just going on and on, sort of, gradually fading. God knows why they chose it as a single, because I mean it was never gonna make it as a kind of mid-80s single, was it? But I could absolutely not leave that one out. Just one of my all-time favourite XTC songs. Shame then got a proper drummer on it, but this was the 1980s, wasn't it?
After all, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think my relationship with Big Express is probably a bit similar to yours and Skylarking, like in the sense that I didn't want my list to be overly dominated by tracks from the Big Express. I would say it is my favourite XTC album, or certainly one off. I don't necessarily think it's their best, but I think it's what I return to the most and kind of play the most and kind of get the most out of whenever I can listen to it. That song is definitely one of the best cuts from it. So my number 2 is the song which kind of started it all off for me, to be honest. I'm not sure if you've got it on your list, if it was maybe a bit too obvious, but going for Senses Working Overtime. So remember, this was for many years the only XTC song I knew. With a lot of music, like what I've kind of got into, it was kind of through Top of the Pops reruns. I used to watch them with my mum occasionally. So here's 1982, and then these guys come. I'd never heard of them before, and then this song starts, and it's all very mysterious. And that you think, okay, this is interesting. I'm not sure if I like this. And then when the 12 string comes in, and you then get that build up to the chorus, you're just like, bloody hell, this is good. And then the way that that chorus rolls, it always blows me away. And I guess I don't say I've overheard it, because I haven't, but I kind of try and moderate myself with this a little bit. I try and not play it a lot, but whenever I do, it always blows me away. And then they're all kind of pulling the weight on it. So I've got Dave Gregory's fantastic 12 string. I think this was Colin's first use of his new fretless space as well. So you got that on air as well. All round just a brilliant song, and their biggest chart hit as well, number 8 it got on the charts.
Yeah, so I didn't include it, but I do like it. It's interesting, I was just listening to it the other day. I was just going for a walk, and I was thinking that I don't think Andy Partridge or XTC at that point had properly grasped the idea of pop arrangements, because that was a song I thought if George Martin had done that song, if he produced that song, you would have absolutely had the song straight away coming straight in with that chorus. Because like you say, the chorus is so mind-blowingly commercial, and you think of songs like, you know, Hard Day's Night, Can't Buy Me Love, all these songs that just they come straight in with this chorus. And yet that song, it begins with this kind of, it's almost like sort of early music, strange Chaucer-like. And sometimes you think, which song is this again? And then all of a sudden it just turns into this song. You're thinking, that's really strange. I guess it shows how original he was, really. Right, okay, so the moment of truth has arrived then. So I think this will surprise you. I don't think you've done a review of Skylarking on your channel, have you? I looked for it.
I've not yet, no. It's one which is on my list to do, but it's just such a mammoth album. It's like, I want to make sure to do it justice, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know what you thought of it, and I thought this is likely to be a song that you probably don't rate, really, knowing what I've seen you talking about music before, I don't know. So, my favourite XTC song, and it's an Andy Partridge song, and it's one that got a real rough ride when the album came out, because it was taken off the record in order to make way for Dear God, the American song, and it's the song Mermaid Smiled on side 2.
Okay. It's unexpected.
I know, so that is my favourite Andy Partridge XTC song. Now, I can't explain why, other than it's a little bit like the Seagull Screaming one. It's just, I think when Andy Partridge is in his element, when he's absolutely, you know, on fire, he produces music, and the effect of the music, you can't put it into words. There's something magical about it. Now, I do think it's the arrangement on this with Todd Rundgren. You've got these amazing bongos in it, which are played by Mingo Lewis, apparently, and you keep hearing this kind of, it's like a sample of surf crashing on the rocks. It's so haunting. It's only a short song, it's just like a verse, chorus, and it's just incredibly evocative. And the song captures something of the kind of magic and the mystery of childhood, really. You know, sometimes you can't explain why certain songs are your favourite, they just have an effect on you, which is not possible to explain, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna upset you. I think that's the weakest track on Skylarking.
I did suspect you'd think that. I don't know why.
Like that one, like either that one or The Man Who Sailed Around His Soul. I've never been massive on that one either. But yeah, no, very interesting choice. Maybe one I'll need to revisit and reappraise. Yeah. So my number one, you've already mentioned it. I'll just get straight to it. It says, yeah, Seagull Screaming, Kiss Her, Kiss Her. For me, a very evocative track. I'm just going to basically echo exactly what you said. It's a kind of off-kilter love song, basically, you know, where this guy, very kind of slightly nervous guy, is getting kind of taunted by these seagulls and that sort of egging him on kind of thing. And then you've got these again some fantastic lyrics like the sea is warship grey, it whispers fooled and slides away, and then there's a great bit at towards the end where he says he compliments a jacket, and he says her thank you tugs my heart afloat. So many clever bits of wordplay like that in it, but musically with that kind of that chugging metaphor and metaphor Mellotron on there, and really reminds me again of a very kind of sleepy kind of English seaside resort, like a kind of Southport or Scarborough kind of place like that, sorry to anyone from Southport, Scarborough, because I watch it. It just puts an image in your head, and it's so apparently he had a whole music video for this song essentially planned out, if it was to become a single, he had a whole script for it and storyboard the whole thing in that, but of course it was never chosen as a single, but a brilliant track, which again, I absolutely adore there. So we've not got too long left in our meeting, so we'll try and we did say that we were going to choose a couple of our least favourite songs or problematic songs that we find with Andy Partridge. So I'll let you do yours first, and then I'll I've got 4 myself.
Well, I'm quite happy to save time, rather than going through them one at a time. Okay. I'm quite happy just to read them all out, just really quickly. So. I've got the song I'm Bugged, which is from the first album, which I just think is just annoying. I sort of listen to it and just think, I'll grow up, just stop singing in that really annoying way and just write a good song. So there's that one. Melt the Guns as an example of a song which just, if he'd done a Wire on it, the band Wire, and done it as like a maybe 1.5 minute song, it would be brilliant.
Yeah.
But it goes on and on and on. And apparently this is incredible. Who was the producer of that record? Hugh
Padgham, yeah.
Hugh Padgham chopped 2 minutes out of that song, would you believe? He chopped 2 minutes
and it's
out
still
of that.
like 6 minutes long or whatever it is.
Just that really boring, long middle 8 bit. 2 minutes chopped out of that. Living in Another Cuba, which, again, it's okay, but I just, something I find it a bit annoying about it. I don't really know why, really. Rain of Blows is okay, nothing special. And I've mentioned the one that you had in your list, actually, the one from the end of Big Express. I think
so cool, yeah.
got to be in the mood for it. It's not a song that's going to make me, pour myself a glass of wine or kind of, kick back with some friends. It's almost like, right, here we go. So yeah, I mean, they're mine anyway.
Yeah. So for me, I've chosen 4, which for me, all 4, I mean, they're maybe not my least favorite because that would probably be just the go-to album. But they're 4 songs which I think each one has got a certain element of his songwriting, what he does, which kind of, when he does it slightly or leads too hard into it, they can annoy me. So first one I've got is Scissor Man from Drums and Wires, which is this kind of herky-jerky kind of thing, a bit like the I'm Bug thing. You kind of think grow up kind of thing, like whenever you kind of you listen to it, silly song. But that particular one just drags on for far too long. I've then got which you won't be too happy about, like 1000 Umbrellas, like from like Skylarking, which represents his kind of sad and kind of self-pitying songs and that, like, which when not done right, again, just feel a little bit too much, like, in that, and this one, like, in particular, with all the strings, it's very melodramatic, and I guess also kind of like something like Complicated Game would also kind of fit into like that category kind of thing, like where he is being a bit sort of too much like kind of like kind of like self-pitying kind of like writing. Then the other kind of ones I've got is like where he's being a bit too serious, like, and the song I've picked to represent that is like Knights in Shining Karma, where it's like it's like he's being, I don't know, like just a bit pretentious a little bit, like with that song, like in particular, like that kind of like that silly word, it's like the wordplay, Knights in Shining Karma, just a bit pretentious and a bit boring for me, like in places. But again, when he does that, like he also, again, like that category, you got some brilliant songs like Rook and like Wrapped in Grey. So I'm not saying that all his serious songs are bad or like I don't like. It's just a couple which kind of rub me up the wrong way. And then I've got his kind of political songs. So I've chosen like Here Comes President Kill Again, which I never thought that he was great at writing like a kind of like political statement, like when it's kind of weaved into songs. I've done subtly things like This World Over and Beating of Hearts. It's great, like all like those songs are fantastic. But when he kind of just does it, and it's like, and Melt the Guns also fits into that category where it's a too on the nose and a bit too obvious. It's like again those ones like annoy me like a little bit. So slightly dour note to like end the video with like 4 ones which I'm not massive on. Yeah.
Well, I'll just flick it into a positive. So of those songs you mentioned, the one that I love is Knights in Shining Karma, which really reminds me of Simon and Garfunkel, who I totally love. So we can end on a high by saying that I think that song is brilliant. So there we go.
Excellent. Okay, right. Well, that will do that. So yeah, no, I've really enjoyed doing this video, James. It's been a pleasure to have you like on like my channel, and we'll hopefully be able to do some more like in like the future, like at some point, like as well. I'd love to have you on again. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.
Bye.